I'm alright. Hey Z-Pack, it's your boy Z-Dog-MD. Check it out. We are live and direct from Z Studios today on, is it Monday? Monday, June 5th. And this is a very difficult episode for me to do, but I think we have to do it. And Tom and Logan and I really kind of wrung our hands a bit about whether we should do this at all and how we could do it in a way that's actually going to help rather than make anything worse. And we spent a lot of time going through and deciding that, yes, this is something we want to do, and this is why. Because what happened to the nurse that we're about to talk about at Delnor Hospital in Illinois a few weeks back initially wasn't reported publicly in the press and then later came out. Her story is so important on every single level to understanding how it is, first of all, we take care of each other, we take care of ourselves, and we support our frontline health caregivers when they're trying to help other people. And so many frontline caregivers feel like they don't have a voice, that violence against healthcare professionals is part of the job, that they are not supported. And so if any good or purpose or meaning is going to come from what happened to this nurse, who is a hero, by the way, then we need to try to pursue that. Now, here's how this story evolved. So when the initial news came out that there was a nurse hostage situation at Delnor Hospital, and the press that day reported that there was an inmate who was there at the hospital receiving care, and there was a lot of errors in the original stories. He had somehow obtained a weapon from the correctional officer who was supposed to be guarding him, held one nurse hostage, let her go, took a second nurse hostage, held her hostage for several hours, was then killed by the SWAT team. And what the press reported was that the nurse was unharmed and that the situation was diffused, and thank you to everyone at the hospital and so on. And that was the initial story. Now, that very night, I got an update from people at the hospital under condition of anonymity, and that I don't share it, which I didn't, that no, it was much worse than that, and that the nurse was most certainly not unharmed, and that hopefully the story would eventually come out, but right now, out of respect for her, let's not talk about it. Now, when it became public in the news a week or so later, we talked about it. We did an episode here entitled Nurse Lives Don't Matter, and that episode in itself went fairly viral and spread around. And the reason it did so is that when you learn the details, the broad level details of that, this nurse was kidnapped, tortured, raped, and shot in her own hospital where she was working by an escaped prisoner who was supposed to be guarded and shackled and wasn't. It generated so much outrage, but more importantly, it generated this idea that we are devalued, that we are expected to give and give and give and give, but never take a thought for our own safety or our own well-being or our own concerns. And this struck a chord with me personally. It struck a chord with thousands, hundreds of thousands of people, and I've gotten so many messages from frontline caregivers, doctors, nurses, everybody who takes care of patients, who touches patients, about how they've been the victims of verbal abuse, emotional abuse, physical abuse, threats, and it's all been swept under the rug. And this can't continue. So when all this happened, I promised you guys then, I said, I will try to figure out if we can set up a P.O. box so we can at least send this anonymous nurse some support. And when I made that promise, people emailed me and said, you know what, we're close to her, we can set it up. And this is what ended up happening. Her sister, who is also an emergency room nurse, they're 10 months apart. And I'm telling you all this because both of them gave me permission to tell this story. Otherwise, I would never say it publicly. And I would never say it publicly even if they gave me permission and I didn't think any good was going to come of it. But I think that we need to talk about this story because we need to stand up, and this cannot be accepted. Now, and the heroism that she displayed cannot be lost. We need to honor it and honor her. So this is what happened. Her sister reached out and said, I've set up a P.O. box. She is having a very, very difficult time, obviously. She's having trouble sleeping. She's having nightmares. She can't leave her house. Her family is suffering. She has young children. She has a husband. And when all this happened, she withdrew into her home as a protective mechanism. And they were going to set up the P.O. box for me and give me the information. And so she did. But she said, I'd also like to talk to you and tell you in person on the phone what actually happened here. Because I want you to know the story, because it seems like we can't tell the story, we can't get it out, and there's so much misinformation. And so I said, just give me a call. Here's my cell phone number. Just call me anytime you're free. And it took a few days because honestly, I think they were weighing, is this something we should do? And when she chose to do it, it was I had just, fed the kids. We'd had dinner. My wife literally told me, hey, we haven't had us time in a long time. You've been so focused on the show and it's been crazy. Is now a good time to just like cuddle on the couch? And I said, sure, it's a perfect time. And then I got a text saying, I have a minute to talk. And it was this nurse's sister. So I told my wife, is this okay? And she said yes, because she's a wonderful human being. And for the next 2 hours, I had one of the most harrowing conversations that I can remember. And it started with the nurse's sister, who was a wonderful human being, and explained to me all the backstory of what had happened and how heroic her sister was and how her staff and the staff at Delnor had supported her, had really, really, really stepped up, but how she felt like the bigger picture was missing this and how horrible it was that the press referred to her as unharmed on the day of the event, and how this was so far from the truth that it caused intense emotional pain. And we kept talking, and I kept trying to figure out how can we generate more of a movement around this without violating her confidentiality, without in any way harming her or what she's going through. And in very short order, something that I wasn't anticipating happened. Her sister walked into the room where her sister was in her home. And I heard her say, it's Z-Dog on the line, the guy who's done the videos about you. Would you like to talk to him? And I'm not gonna lie, I started to panic because I had no idea, first of all, that I was gonna talk with her. And I had no idea if I would say the wrong thing, if I didn't even know what I might say to someone who has been through such a horrible event. And after I got a minimal bit of composure, I decided I'm just gonna listen. And in this time that she talked to me, it was clear she was emotionally upset, but her inner strength, every ounce of what I heard on the phone showed me a strong person who has known suffering and has come out, who's struggling with nightmares, who's struggling with flashbacks, who's struggling with clear early signs of post-traumatic stress, but who will overcome this and who wants her story known. And by the end of the conversation, she told me, I want you to tell any part of the story that you want, that you feel will further the cause. And the cause is no one should suffer this. We should take care of our frontline brothers and sisters who are taking care of patients who give so much, but are never allowed to take for themselves refuge. And this was the story that she told me. And I'm basically gonna convey the parts that I think are relevant, and I'm gonna self-edit the parts that I don't think advance the reason we're telling the story. And I wanna just make sure I pull up your live stream here to make sure I know you're with me on this. And 1,800 people are, so I know you're with me on this. So this is how things went down. This nurse is a nurse manager in the emergency department, I presume. I didn't specifically ask about ER, although they are both emergency nurses. On this day, it was her day off. Let me just repeat that for a second. This was this nurse's day off. They were short-staffed, and because she is a giver and cares about her team and cares about her hospital and knows that if no one goes in, no one goes in, she stepped up and decided to go and do the work. So she went in on her day off and took a shift. What had ended up happening was, and this story has been told before in the previous episode that we shared, okay? The prisoner who was there in the hospital for 3 days for auto and self-ingesting a flip-flop and having surgery, and it was clear that he was displaying manipulative tendencies and aggressive behavior and et cetera, and the correctional officer did not have him properly shackled. He was able to escape, take the correctional officer's weapon. We still don't know how. The correctional officer then allegedly ran away and hid in another room and locked himself up, did not notify anyone for a considerable period of time. In this period, the patient escaped, initially took one nurse hostage. When the nurse that we're talking about today walked in on the room, she tried to talk to the prisoner and basically talk him down. And at that point, he took her hostage. What followed from that point was 4 hours of horrible, horrible, horrible suffering and misery. And I can't emphasize this because I heard the story from her, how horrible this was. What I'm going to tell you are some of the parts that I think paint a picture of who this nurse is and why she needs all of our support. And Logan, can you please put up the P.O. box? So this was a P.O. box set up by her sister. I hope everyone can see it. And we'll keep it up there. And we want you to send your support in any form, whether it's a card, whatever you can think of, to show our solidarity with her. For 4 hours, this inmate slash patient slash criminal at this point kept her in the dark, in a tiny room, pitch black room. From the beginning, he verbally threatened her, said, "We are both going to leave this room in body bags. We are not going to leave alive." He took the pistol and he told her at various points during her ordeal, "Where would you like me to shoot you? Because I can shoot you here or here or here. How would you like to die? Because neither one of us is going to survive this." During this period, if she cried, she was pistol whipped in the back of the head by this gentleman. During this period, the only time the lights came on was when the gentleman took her phone and Skyped his relatives. So he was talking to his relatives. And I'm not going to get into the details of who he spoke to, but it was an extended relative. And when the nurse told me this story, I mean, this person was a female. She got on the phone and she begged with him, "Please let her go. Please don't kill her. Please do the right thing. This isn't who you are." And she begged the nurse, "Please don't let them kill him. Promise me they won't kill him." And the whole time the nurse was talking to him, was saying, "Listen, you don't want to die. This isn't who you are. You can let us go. You don't have to do this. We can end all of this." The entire time, connected with him, focused on him, praying for him. She's religious, praying for him and connecting with him. And she promised this relative, "I will do my best that they won't kill him." And this goes on for 4 hours. Now, when as the story is told, they were negotiating with the police, there apparently was an understanding about a getaway car. And when it was clear that there wasn't going to be a getaway car, that is when the prisoner told her, "Someone has to suffer for this and someone has to pay for this." And that's when he raped her. And the entire time he was talking to her, accusing her, blaming her, threatening her life in this dark room in the hospital. Now just take a second to imagine what that is like. And you know what she was thinking? This is what she told me. "How do I keep my promise to her relative? I promised they wouldn't kill him." That's what she's thinking. And she's talking to him the whole time. Because this is a superhuman woman. This is someone like so many frontline nurses and caregivers and doctors and staff who cares about other people to the exclusion of herself. That's what she's thinking about when she's going through this ordeal. And by the end of it, when the SWAT team came in, and this wasn't clearly reported, they shot at him and the bullet actually grazed through her arm, so she was shot and then hit him in the head. And we all know what a head wound looks like. So she's just seen this happen, and her thought was, oh my gosh, I didn't keep my promise. And right after this happens, she then has to go and undergo a rape kit and all the typical stuff that happens when someone is the victim of a crime. And then the press says, this nurse was unharmed. Are you kidding me? Are you kidding me? And she said hearing the words unharmed on the news, it was like being stabbed. It was so horrible. And anybody who's had this kind of trauma knows the power of words. We constantly talk about triggers and this and that, and we're actually belittling people with real PTSD for whom words actually matter because they trigger the memory of what happened. And in her case, since she's been home, she has been suffering. She's had nightmares. She can't sleep. She's tearful. And on the phone, all of this came through. But what also came through was, this is what she told me. She said, everyone, and she said this through tears, everyone keeps saying I'm a hero. But I'm not the hero. The heroes are the ones who went right back to work, who cleared the patients out of the emergency room, who tried to actually help this guy. Those are the heroes. I don't feel like a hero. I feel like I will never be whole again. I feel like I will never be myself again, like this will never leave me. I will never stop having nightmares, that this pain will never leave my family, and the effect on my children and my husband, it will never be washed clean. And that's what she told me. I mean, when I heard this, it's just impossible to put into words how much we can't let this story, this tragedy, not have purpose and meaning. And when we talked at the end of our conversation, I said, I'm glad you told me this. It feels like it will never get better. It will. You are strong and you will improve, but it will take time and you will need support. And there are thousands of nurses and doctors and patients around the country who care about you and have expressed support and have told their own stories of violence in the workplace. You have triggered something by taking that day off and going to work. First of all, you saved lives because by talking to him, engaging him, keeping him occupied, by clearly showing compassion for him, not only did you save your own life, but you probably saved the lives of others, and you gave him the best shot to survive. And this story can't die. It has to have purpose. And when we talked about this, she said, this is what I want. What I would hate is for this to have happened to me and no good to have come of it. For other people, my brothers and sisters who are working, to suffer in silence, I can't take it. It would just destroy me. And so this is why I'm telling this story today. And she really, really, really strongly asked me, please tell every detail you can. And what I did was try to do justice to the intent of the story, with the goal being, I want you, first of all, to send her your support. Because when I told her what was going on, she said, it means so much to me that others who do what I do care, because it's so isolating being in this house walled away. And I know my hospital cares. I'm not sure about the bigger entity that owns the hospital, but I know that my hospital cares. And so we want you to send support. The second thing she said is that what she appreciated about what we are doing together, Z-Pack, is we're giving her a voice and we're calling it like it is. We did not use the word unharmed on the day. We used the word safe. The nurse is safe, which she was, but she was far from unharmed. And to call her unharmed belittles the struggle that she went through. So, I guess if we're talking about finding purpose here, what I want to do is I want to say that when we're talking about the purpose of the show, this, us. It's to build Health 3.0. And what is Health 3.0 but taking care of patients by also taking care of each other? If we can't stand up and say we will never tolerate violence against our caregivers again, that we won't turn a blind eye to it, that we will not sweep it under the rug, that we will not allow the press to blow over it, that we will not let this heroic nurse's story be in vain, or fail to honor the other people who worked in that hospital who are suffering as well, who stepped up, then what's the purpose of this? And that's what I'm asking you guys to do, is to give this purpose and meaning. What I want to do now is I want to go to a really, really, really uncensored tribe talk in a next live. I want you to share this with everybody you know. I want you to mail to this address your support for this nurse. And I want you to let her know that we care, because she is listening to us. She is watching. This means a lot. And let her know that this will get better, that she will find resilience, because she always has. She's that type of person, and that we have her back. Thank you so much. Let's go to Tribe Talk.
Go, 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 go. I'm alright. Uh-huh.